order. Tonight is Monday, January 6, 2025. I want to wish everyone a happy new year, and it's good to see everyone. I hope everyone's healthy, given that all the things that are going on and going around. And we will start with introductions, and we'll start with Sarissa.
Sarissa Falk, Senior Management Coordinator.
Corinne Heining, City Attorney.
Happy New Year, Mike Funk, City Manager.
Patsy Foster Bolton, Ward 1.
Excuse me. Kimberly Wilburn, at large.
Rebecca Shack, Ward 2.
Brad Wierson, Mayor.
Kizzy Copley, Ward 4.
Deb Calvert, At-Large C-Day.
Paula Ramaley, Ward 3.
Erna Dahman, Assistant City Manager.
And it's just us. So, and welcome to our new 6 o'clock start time. I think that's significant, but we're still getting our sea legs on that, I think. We're all chewing more than we normally do at the start of a meeting, but that happens. Let's see, well, welcome everyone. Mike, I'll turn it over to you regarding the addenda. Oh, okay, well, I can keep talking, you know me.
My
All right,
apologies.
no, you're good, you're good.
So, yeah, thank you, Brad and Council. Good evening. You do have one addenda item, and it was on item 3E. So with addendas, those do get placed with the agenda item. So oftentimes when you go into your iLegislate, the first thing you want to do, just to make sure you have the addenda, is in the lower left-hand side of that home screen on iLegislate. There's a half circle with an arrow on it. It's called the refresh button. So
Yep.
oftentimes you want to just refresh your iLegislate. You should do that anytime you open iLegislate. Just hit that little refresh
Okay.
circle. And then by clicking on item 3E, you'll note an addenda there. And this is correspondence that came in after the packet went out, and it is a message from a resident regarding the item. So that is listed there. Otherwise,
Great.
there are no other changes to the agenda. Thank you.
All right, very good. So that takes us to item 3, which is business items. And next item up is Planning Commission interviews. And Sarissa, do you have these orchestrated? So we're going to go in, we've got the time here, so we're going in this order. So we'll have Mark Partridge first.
Yes,
And is he here?
yes, and I
Great.
can go get them. And I don't know if, Mayor, you want to say how are you going to do the questions?
All right, so, so thank you, Sarissa. So we've got,
Thank you.
we've got 4 questions here. They were part of the packet. I think in the interest of efficiency and keeping things moving, I will just ask the questions on behalf of everyone. In addition to that comment, I'm going to, you've heard it all from Mike this week. I want to really work on keeping our meetings moving. And for study sessions, my goal is that we are going to adjourn our meetings at 8:30 or before, whether we get all our work done or not. So we're going to be focused, and if we don't get to everything, then we'll have to continue it to another meeting. But our goal is we will be done by 8:30 tonight. So I wanted to let everybody know that. So let's bear that in mind as we do our work. Good evening.
Hi.
How are you? Mr. Partridge, correct?
Yes, correct. I'm good.
Well, welcome. So thank you for your interest in the Planning Commission. And let's see, we'll just quickly introduce council members. Council members are all here. We'll go down the line, say hello, and then we'll get into the questions. We've got basically 4 questions. They're not stump the band questions, but we
Yeah,
are
I was
interested in
wondering.
hearing what you have to say. I think you've seen the questions.
I have.
All right.
I'm Patsy Foster Bolton, Ward 1.
Kimberly Wilburn, at large.
Rebecca Shack, Ward 2.
Brad Wierson, Mayor.
Kizzy Copley, Ward 4.
Deb Calvert, At-Large.
Paula Ramaley, Ward 3.
All right, and then we have several staff members here, and we'll just keep moving. And I will be, in the interest of time, I'll just be asking the questions of you. And So the first question is, please tell us about yourself. What in your background makes you the right person for this position? And then I will add, speak to any land use experience you may have, if you have that in any of that in your background. So,
Sure. Well, I'm an architect and worked about 25 years in the private sectors, partnered with a couple of firms here in town. Took some time and ran an office in Asia, but which prompted me to come back and I've spent the last 10 years as the university architect for the system for the University of Minnesota.
okay, interesting.
And so I know a lot about planning. Half my job now is planning and certainly land use projects. When I was very, very young, I worked on this building. I don't know if that's good news or bad news. So I think I understand a lot of those things. I think I don't know if the commission has other architects, but I think there's a design perspective that's really useful. I mean, there's zoning and there's ordinances,
Right.
there's math, but I think just some common sense about parking circulation or the fit of a building or the fit in the community, the scale of the building. So I'm hoping I would bring that.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So you've probably paid attention to what the Planning Commission does some, and you don't have to say yes or no, but the Planning Commission is faced with a lot of difficult decisions and differing opinions. What is your approach when required to make decisions in this type of environment?
Sure. Well, consensus is the cliche, I'm sure, but architecture is consensus driven. It's multiple voices. I'll lead a design team. They'll have a consultant team. The client is typically a team. And I thought I knew a lot about consensus until I got to the University of Minnesota, and that is absolutely consensus driven. And so it's simply important, obviously, to hear all the voices and work the process and have patience, frankly, because a lot of these things can take some time to work out.
Great. Thank you for that. The city emphasizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in our body of work. How does this effort intersect with the work of the Planning Commission?
Well, I think Minnetonka is slowly, but getting diverse. It's changing already, and diversity to me is healthy. I think it's organisms are healthier when they're diverse. I think it's good for the city. I think it's good for the culture. And in my planning experience, I mean, planning's about the future. So the Planning Commission has a great opportunity to kind of sow the seeds of that change and that diversity. So it's an important role.
All right, thank you. And our last question is, based on your understanding of the commission, what do you think will be an individual challenge for you and a challenge for the group?
Well, 10 years ago, I would have said the challenge would be to want to solve these planning problems and take out a pen and design.
Right.
The university's been really good for that because it's a broader, more institutional view. That sounds wrong, like a bad thing,
Right.
but it isn't. Because you have a context, you have a bigger picture than just a singular project or a singular development. So that would have been my challenge. I don't know what my
Right.
challenge will be now, but and then there was a second part to the question.
Well, a challenge for you, but then also a challenge for the group.
Yeah.
The peers on the commission.
Sure, and boy, the commission will know way more than I do about that. I would say, again, just kind of from what I know, I think the challenge one has to be growth. I think you can look at cities that have grown, and it is such a positive thing. You can see cities that have grown and it's gotten away from them, or, I'm struck with planning decisions. The commission probably makes 100 decisions, in a year, and there are all these kind of incremental decisions. And then my challenge, I would think, would be to look back 5 years later and go, boy, these added up poorly, or we really had a sense of what we were trying to do. So
Yep.
it's not very articulate, but I think this idea of growth, and then I do think specific to Minnetonka would be just the challenge of the environmental challenge. I think
Mhm.
I've lived many places. This is a really special place, and how do you protect that? Seems important.
All right. Well, Mr. Partridge, I think you've hit on a lot of what we deal with as a city council and as a planning commission. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask of us?
Well, just the classics. So how do you decide, and when do you decide, and these kind of things? But,
Well, we will decide pretty quickly.
Okay.
And if you're behind you, you can see your competitors, and we've got
well, yes, I was talking.
yeah. Well, that's you probably met them all out there, and so we are selecting one person for. There's one
Oh, okay,
vacancy
yeah.
now, so one of you will be selected, and 3 of you won't. But that's not all necessarily because these commissions are dynamic. We retain your application. So that if another opening would come up, we would go back to the people we interviewed, probably then opening up a whole new interview process. So, we wish you well, and we'll see how it goes. But we're fortunate to have quality candidates, and we indeed do.
Yeah, good. Well, best of luck, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks very much for being here. Thanks for coming in. You're all good.
Just going to tell them they don't need to come in.
That's probably a good move on your part.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming in. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. I'm John Barron.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Barron, or John, we try to be less formal in these study sessions. I'm going to have my fellow council members just go down the line, and we'll introduce ourselves to you, and then we'll get into the questions. Staff, in the interest of time, we'll just save you having to learn staff until it's
Sarissa and I
necessary.
go way back.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. So, Patsy.
I'm Patsy Foster Bolton, Ward 1.
Kimberly Wilburn at large.
Rebecca Shack, Ward 2.
Brad Wearsome, Mayor.
Kizzy Coakley, Ward 4.
Deb Calvert at large. Paula Rameli, Ward 3.
Excellent. Welcome. So,
Thank you.
and just in the interest of time, I'll just be answering asking all the questions. You're going to be answering the questions, and I believe you saw the questions beforehand. I hope you did.
Yeah.
And so this is no stump the band questions here. We're just really interested in hearing your perspective and so forth. So the first question is, please tell us about yourself and what in your background makes you the right person for this position. And then I'll add, speak to any land use experience that you may have as you pursue this position.
The gel pens don't have the longevity of the conventional old.
Do you need a pen? 'Cause we
No,
can
there's a
probably-
pencil here.
Okay.
Okay. My name is John Barron. I'm retired. I grew up in St. Louis Park through high school. Lived in South Minneapolis for over 40 years. Graduated from the University of Minnesota, business finance. I spent 26 years in the printing business, finishing my career 20 years at the University of St. Thomas as a director of printing and mailing. I have been running a very small business for more than 35 years. It's kind of a hobby business, but it's taken me all over the world and provides beer money and It's a lot of fun. And it has to do with vintage racing bicycles. So if anybody wants to talk afterwards about bicycles. I enjoy international travel. I've been to Japan many, many times, Italy many times. Grew up in St. Louis Park, 40 years in South Minneapolis, moved back to Minnetonka 5 years ago. I'm over just down the street by St. David's. I love my neighborhood, love my neighbors, and I didn't love my home until I completely rehabbed it. And so I took the bold move of pulling permits on electrical and plumbing and windows and demolition, and that's actually one of my hobbies. I have a lot of experience with plumbing and electrical and knocking down walls. Why might I be good for the position? I've had some pretty cool volunteer opportunities. I served for several years with the Longfellow Community Council Neighborhood Development Committee. And we were charged with reviewing and approving and requesting modifications on literally every single commercial development that came before. South Minneapolis is into providing input by neighborhoods. So neighborhood associations are real strong. And so I served on that committee for a long time, and it was a lot of fun. I have been active in the Hennepin County Fix-It Clinic for more than 10 years. It's one of my gifts. I can fix anything, and I enjoy doing it. So we're going to the Swedish Institute and this coming Sunday, and what we do is we teach people how to fix their own stuff rather than us fix it for them. I'm a recent graduate of the City of Minnetonka Police Academy. Proud to say, had a really interesting time. And I served for several years as a City of Minneapolis council member appointee for CLIC, which is the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee. And our job was to review it's a bonding thing, but there was staff that dealt with the bonding issues. We reviewed and approved or denied capital projects for the City of Minneapolis and presented to the mayor and city council at the end of each series of meetings. That was really interesting stuff. And I have a couple things to say. Water. Water is a million times more important than most people think. And we got a chance to tour the then new Columbia Heights treatment facility. Very interesting. Also, I have an appreciation for how expensive roads and bridges are. Unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to keep moving along here. I think that answers, well, let's see. I have experience with, I was a budget manager at the University of St. Thomas with a $3+ million budget. So I have experience with capital stuff, expenditures, finance in general, being a small business owner, interest in the securities markets, cycling, hiking, international travel.
Great, great. So that takes us, well, to question 2.
Yeah.
All right, so the Planning Commission is faced with a lot of difficult decisions and differing opinions. What is your approach when required to make decisions in this type of environment?
Well, I learned serving with some really smart, thoughtful people in CLIC that I needed to listen. I needed to listen to, even though I would go into something and say, oh, well, the Lowry Hill or the Lowry Avenue Bridge is super important. And I would go into it thinking, because we've got a book this thick, review all these. I go into it thinking this or that, and I'm just using Lowry Bridge as an example. But after listening to my colleagues, I would feel something different sometimes. And it was an epiphany that I could change my mind about something. And there were times when I didn't. And I'd try to change, excuse me, I would try to change their minds. But anyhow, listening is the big thing for how to deal with difficult decisions. And then follow my heart and my head.
Excellent. Thank you for that. The city emphasizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in our body of work. How does this effort intersect with the work of the Planning Commission?
That's different from the question that you published.
Really?
A little bit.
Okay, I'll
But-
read it again. Maybe I misread it.
Well,
So,
read it again.
the city emphasizes diversity,
Yeah.
equity, and inclusion
yeah.
in our body of work. How does this effort intersect with the work of the Planning Commission?
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think it has to intersect. And specifically how? Well, take into consideration all of these things, equity, inclusion, diversity, with every decision that's made. And listen to your colleagues. How exactly to implement it, I mean, that's I don't know. It's too big for this for this thing. But keep it at the forefront. Have champions on the committee who will remind us to keep it at the forefront. And that includes, I would imagine, the city council pressing the commission to consider all of it in every decision. Because it's in the best interest of the city, the vitality and the public health.
All right, thank you. So, question 4. Based on your understanding of the commission, what do you think will be an individual challenge for you and then a challenge for the group?
I think it has to do with, my big challenge will be learning. I mean, I don't have much experience with zoning ordinances. I haven't read the 2040 comprehensive plan. These are things that the city has put a lot of importance in, and I would need, and that'll be a challenge, to learn that stuff. And then how to align the public projects and commercial projects with those visions and that plan. That's the big challenge. And I hate working on vision statements and strategic plans. I mean, it bores me to tears, but I recognize that it's important. And with a city like Minnetonka, you've got to plan. You have to plan. So aligning this stuff with the vision of the city will be the big challenge.
Very good. So that's it for our questions, but do you have questions that you have of us?
Well, you had asked about land use, my experience with land use. I've read through a bunch of the Planning Commission's agendas and minutes and stuff, and I'm kind of fascinated with this stuff, variances and heights and trees and permeable. Actually, I probably did learn quite a bit about land use in CLIC. Pervious surfaces and percentage of canopy coverage and all this, it was part of these capital projects oftentimes. So without it being explicit, I probably learned a fair amount, but it's not my area of expertise, and so I look forward to learning more.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your coming in today, and
Question?
Go ahead, yes.
How often does the commission meet?
Typically, it meets, it's twice a month, right?
Twice a month.
Yep. And it doesn't, some meetings get canceled and so forth, and we have an occasional joint meeting with the council and so forth. But on average, you can figure twice a month,
Okay. Year-round?
year
There's not
round.
like summer
I mean, there's an occasional break,
Yeah.
but typically it's year round. Yep. I mean, developers come to us all the time
I
with
bet.
projects, and there's always issues. So yeah, it's a year round deal.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
right, now should I should I introduce you two? I haven't, I've just done the council.
No,
Is it okay?
it's fine.
I don't want to offend you.
No, we're not offended. Thanks for asking though.
Okay, well,
It's too late now.
Yeah.
Contin-
You're
continuous-
only 50% offended.
continuous, I'm a believer in continuous improvement. Good evening.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in tonight.
Yeah, you betcha.
So you talked with your fellow candidates, and we're not going to challenge you too much, but we're going to start by just introducing the members of the council who are seated here at the table, and then we'll get into the questions. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
So Patsy,
Hi, I'm Patsy Foster Bolton, Ward 1. And
Okay.
I'm sorry, are you Scott?
I'm Scott.
Scott, sorry about that. I could have
That's
done
okay.
that better.
Kimberly Wilburn, at large.
Okay.
Hi, Scott. Rebecca
Hi.
Shack.
Hi, I'm Brad Wiersum, the mayor.
Kizzy Coakley, Ward 4.
Deb Calvert at large. I'm Paula Romero, Ward 3.
So, yeah, so we're just, in the interest of time, we're just doing the council members. But anyway, we're really glad that you're here. And we have, a handful, we've got 4 questions for you, maybe with a little embellishment on those. But, we really appreciate your coming in, again, to be repetitious. And I believe you've been given the questions beforehand. So I'll just read the questions, and then you just share your answers, and then we'll have an opportunity for any questions that you have. So,
Okay.
first question is, please tell us about yourself and what in your background makes you the right person for this position. And then I'll also add, speak to any land use experience that you may have.
Yeah, I'm Scott. I've lived in Minnetonka now for 4 years. I've spent most of my life here in the Twin Cities area. Raised my family in Maple Grove, but during that time I worked in local government in a variety of different cities. St. Louis Park, Brooklyn Center, Golden Valley, had a short stint in Duluth too. And that public local government experience was as a city engineer, public works director. So that's me, my background professionally. And I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
So-
I'll expand on it.
So if, a little bit about your background that makes you the right person, so maybe you can embellish a little bit on your experience, and then and it sounds like you have land use experience, and if you had anything that you want to share with us about your land use experience.
Yeah, so, a lot of, that's what's piqued my interest here is just public service in general, having worked in local government. And even though I'm retired, I still have public service in my blood. I guess you could say I still want to, serve my community and make a difference. And I just love doing it. I don't necessarily miss being a city engineer or public works director, but, being part of the community and making a difference and just getting plugged in. I moved away. I lived in Colorado for 7 years, and I've been back here in Minnetonka for 4 years now, and I'm slowly getting plugged in. But it's been a little bit of a. I'd like to get more involved. And
Right.
I retired 3 years ago, and it's like, yeah, it's time to stretch out a little more and get involved. So, but yeah, with land use, just the local government experience. I work very closely all the time with our city planners and community development folks, and got involved with a lot of that. Just from a public works standpoint, there's transportation, there's housing, just all these things that wrap in. It all integrates. And
Yep.
so that's what I loved about it a lot, was just how everything interrelated and worked together. We just we didn't work in silos. I loved just the whole saw the big picture, not just within your city, but even outside of it, your
Right.
partners, you have the county, you have the watersheds and Met Council and all that. And I just loved, that whole big picture part of it, and, working with comp plans and land use, and whether that's something big like a comp plan or, plan unit development, multi-use plan, you're looking kind of at the same thing at, a smaller level, local level.
Right.
So, all those things, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So next question is, the Planning Commission is faced with a lot of difficult decisions and differing opinions. What is your approach when required to make decisions in this type of environment?
Yeah, I think important thing is just running a good solid public process, you know, and standing by it. You know, making sure all the stakeholders are involved and they're being listened to. But I think running a good process is important from the standpoint of, you know, it's important that people feel like they're being heard, they're being listened to. And you do care about, you know, what their feelings on certain things, because people do have strong emotions on certain things. And I think at the end of the day, or end of the hearing, or the end of the issue, you know, when a decision's finally made, you know, not everybody's gonna be happy, of course, but a lot of the time, but, you know, you want people to walk out of there feeling like, hey, at least I was listened to, I was respected, I was being
Right.
heard. You know, that doesn't happen all the time. But, you know, that part is important. So I think it's knowing you went through a good process and you stand by it, even though you know, you're gonna get.
Right.
And it's always this balance, you know, you're looking, you know, at the interest, the greater interest, what's good for the entire city, you know, you're looking at that, but then you have the local interest that's, you know, the neighbors, you know, they have their interest too, and it's trying to balance that and making sure everybody's being heard and, you know, you're making the right decision, and standing by it, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Next question is, the city emphasizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in our body of work. How does this effort intersect with the work of the Planning Commission?
Yeah, when I first saw that question, I mean, the first thing I thought of was when I was out at Wheat Ridge, which is a suburb of Denver out there, right next to Denver. We were putting together I'll just call it for simplicity, a sidewalk and pedestrian plan, but it was really just kind of a multimodal transportation element of our transportation plan. And traditionally, we always just, things like that, you know, we'd post this notice out there, hey, we're having this great open house meeting, we want your comments, feedback, you know, come to City Hall, and we just, you know, knew that, you know, that just doesn't work. I mean, you do that anyway, but, you know, the community was changing, you know, demographically. You know, people were coming to Wheat Ridge, to younger families, you know, different demographics, you know, housing, we're moving to, you know, denser housing, kind of making this transition from more of a, I'll call it more of a traditional blue collar, middle class, white suburb that was going through a change, you know, and you're looking at what's going on at present, but also into the future, 2040. So we knew from a transportation standpoint, are we really reaching out to everybody that needs to be heard? You know, we've got these young families coming in. We've got, you know, a lot of it too is, you know, we realized people that are trying to get to transit, you know, in certain destinations. These might be single moms or dads working 2 jobs, and you know, how do we get input from them? You know, and how do we reach out, you know, and it's engaging our other partners too, everybody from, you know, the business community to the local food shelf. I mean, there's lots of good resources out there. So I think from a DEI or, you know, standpoint, it's really getting everybody that needs to be in at the table, you know, and getting them
Right.
engaged and listening to them. And I think from a planning standpoint, I know you're looking at doing an update to I think the zoning code, zoning plan, and those
Mhm.
kinds of things are gonna be wrapping right into that. Yeah, I think it's just getting out and doing it's all good, part of that public process,
Yep.
yeah, getting out and getting to the people that you need to hear from.
Great. Well, thank you. Our last question is this. Based on your understanding of the commission, what do you think will be an individual challenge for you and a challenge for the group?
Yeah, I think for the commission, yeah, I think you're looking at I'll call it the more day-to-day things you see every day that come in, you know, that need to be evaluated. It might be somebody, you know, doing in addition to their garage, or it could be a major, you know, redevelopment of some sort. Those are all challenging. I think it's always important to do your due diligence, because I've found that the things you think that are a slam dunk that should just be on the consent agenda don't always work out that way. And some things you brace for the worst don't turn out so bad, but it's always important to you know, make sure you've done your homework and you've done all your work. So I think that's I think a challenge for the Planning Commission is as we look into the future here, just making sure we're seeing the good picture, big picture, long-term, but we're also looking into these needs that people have right now, and how that all fits together. And it's can really be a challenge. I think a challenge for me is I like to think of myself as a patient person, but sometimes I'm not, so, process person. I just remember one issue we were dealing with in Wheat Ridge. It was a neighborhood traffic thing, and we just went through this really, really long public process. And at the end of it, when it was all done, we didn't end up doing much, just a little bit of traffic calming. And so you're thinking, geez, all that for just that, And I got a nice note from one of the residents just saying, thank you, you have the patience of Job. And I just kind of laughed, because there are times I am not patient, because engineers, we want to fix things, we want to move on. So I'm sometimes I've been in front of city councils like, oh, come on, make a decision.
Not us.
Yes.
Been there.
So that is our job. We sometimes forget that, but it is our job.
Yeah.
So, well, that's it for the questions, but do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of us before we wrap up?
No, I'll throw it back. What do you see as the biggest challenges, maybe not just for the planning commission, but just in general, that you see coming down the road here? With the city?
How much time do you have?
That's a question, but I think part of it is, and council members, please weigh in, but dealing with all of the diverse issues that we face. I mean, clearly, we're a fully developed community, but we want to continue to grow. We don't want to stop. We're going to have a lot of redevelopment. But we also have, we pride ourselves on environmental factors and trees and things like that. And as you look at redevelopment and the things that we're going to face, there's compromises in each one of those. I mean, if we just love the woods, we'll just quit developing. Well, that's not going to work for a city. But we have just many competing interests, and it's like, and that's why the Planning Commission is so important, is because we have competing interests. We have values that we know our residents value. We want to be consistent with those, but we also want to be a progressive city that is staying in tune with the times.
Yeah.
And Council, I don't know if you have anything. If that was an adequate answer, if you have anything you want to add.
Smart growth, and I'd say, there are so many needs. Addressing those needs without ballooning the budget, they're just so, when we vote on stuff, it's because people ask us to do certain things. It usually isn't just something that we individually think of. So there's a lot of there are a lot of interests, a lot of competing interests and needs, and trying to, meet those needs without just, everything so expensive.
Yeah.
But trying to, pay attention to all those.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. One of the questions we ask ourselves, and then we'll wrap it up here, but is, we get asked to do a lot, and we do a lot. But are there things that we can stop doing? Because otherwise that budget just continues to balloon. Right. And we know that generally government has grown substantially over the years. How can we, kind of put a cork in the bottle, but make sure we're doing the right things?
Yeah.
And affordable housing.
Yes.
Yeah, prioritizing.
Yeah. So.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and if I'm not chosen for the Planning Commission, I'd love to serve in some other capacity too. I just feel like
Excellent.
I have something to offer.
Don't worry, we got something for you.
We've got something.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, we can put you to work, not to worry.
All right.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Let's see, I think it fell off right there. I think you're
Thank you
good.
so much for the recording.
That's right. Maybe we'll get it.
All right.
Stay
Have a
warm.
good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Good evening, welcome. Good to see you.
And you, Mayor, and everyone else.
Greetings. Well, we've got a handful of questions for you. Thank you very much for your interest in the Planning Commission. And we'll just go down the line and introduce the council members. You probably know who most of us are, but regardless, we'll do that.
all.
Yeah, and then we'll get into the questions, and I think you've seen those. So,
Patsy Foster Bolton, Ward 1.
Kimberly Wilburn, at large.
Rebecca Scheck, Ward 2.
Brad Wiersum, Mayor.
Kizzy Coakley, Ward 4.
Deb Calvert at large, and I don't recognize you not on a bike. Like
Right.
you're
I
not on the bike planet.
for a while.
Paula Romaili, Ward 3.
Yeah, I won't ask the unofficial question, did you ride your bike here? But I know the answer to that question, so I'll dispense with that. So, yeah, we've got 4 questions, and again, we appreciate your coming in tonight and your interest in the Planning Commission. So the first question is this: please tell us about yourself. What in your background makes you the right person for this position? And if you have any land use experience that you'd like to share, please do that as well.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to share is that I've been a Minnetonka resident for over 20 years. My wife and I moved here in 2002 and raised our family here. I know that kind of puts me still in the newcomer camp. A lot of the people being here for 40 plus or 50 plus years, but that whole time has been in Ward 3. I've got a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Civil option from the Colorado School of Mines, granted in 1990. I have 30 years of practice in the civil engineering industry. In my early career, I worked more in an environmental capacity, doing investigations on nuclear weapons plants and chemical weapons plants in the Denver area for remediation. I also did some engineering-related work there, more with landfills and dams. So kind of the traditional civil engineering stuff. The majority of my career, however, has been here in Minnesota, where I've worked on several large transit projects in the Twin Cities for the last 20 plus years. And overall, my experience in that realm has been both in public and private capacities. Item number 4 that I wanted to touch on, that the mayor kind of stole my thunder already. I'm a year-round transportation bicyclist or bike commuter, however you want to say it. After so many attempts in the last 10 plus years to find ways to improve safety for myself and all of the other so-called vulnerable road users, I've become somewhat orange-pilled by what I see being successful in other places. And this makes me want to do things here to make people more aware of what can work, and also then work to make it possible and happen here. When I investigated ways that I could work here to make this happen at the city level, the Planning Commission and the Park Board were the 2 options that mentioned transportation, specifically in the case here, multimodal transportation. Last, a somewhat synergistic confluence of information that I've gained as part of my transit experience and my transportation experience has shown me how important or even vital land use decisions and practices are in enabling us to approach sustainability and resiliency as we see how much we need to do to address climate change. And it seems that the Planning Commission has at least some level of involvement in land use. To strictly answer the last part of your question, Mayor, since I have been more of an IT person for the last however many years of my time here, I don't have anything that you would strictly call land use experience. But the kind of confluence, as I mentioned, between being on a bike for so much of the time and kind of paying attention to all of that environment that people are out there talking and how to improve it, and combine that with the transit, gives me at least some level of familiarity. But it's not direct experience.
Well, and that's, and you're kind of like the rest of us then, because, we didn't walk into these jobs as land use experts, but we get to make land use decisions, and that's what we're looking for. But I want to touch on that because so much of what the Planning Commission does is land use. So, that was not an attempt to stump the band, trust me. So next question is, the Planning Commission is faced with a lot of difficult decisions and differing opinions. What is your approach when required to make decisions in this type of environment?
My approach in that kind of environment, and generally any kind of environment, is when presented with a problem or an issue or a goal, is to listen to and work with relevant stakeholders using the established criteria, in this case zoning or the comp plan or others, as guidance, in a collaborative manner to arrive at a solution that is as much a win-win as possible for all parties. And that kind of comes from working that way in an engineering environment too, where we have very similar strict guidance, if you will, on individual projects. Like, here's our specifications and here's the plans and this is how it needs to be done, and oh, we found something unexpected, so how are we going to fix that? How are we going to make it work? And listen to the contractor, listen to the landowner, listen to the owner of the project, and try and make it work.
Very good. Thank you. Next question is, the city emphasizes diversity, equity, and inclusion in our body of work. How does this effort intersect with the work of the Planning Commission?
I would have to answer truthfully again. I'm not entirely sure how it intersects directly, but I will say that I support it, diversity, inclusion, and equity myself. I feel it's long overdue. A recent area of interest for me, as an example, is with the Mills Church group, where it kind of resulted in me asking the question of myself, could my immigrant forebears have lived here in Minnetonka if they came here now? And then kind of a follow-up question to that, are my kids going to be able to live here? And the answers to those really kind of led me to say, I think we can do better and hope we can do better. And that's part of why I wanted to be involved, just to try and help make it better. I do want to touch on, I guess, not a disclaimer or a gotcha or anything. I think such approaches do need to be still strongly considered within the other constraints that we have to work within.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I just couldn't hear what you said.
I think we have to work within the constraints that we have, like the zoning rules and the comp plan, to still achieve the ultimate goal, but we do absolutely need to include all three of the diversity and equity and inclusion as part of that consideration. It can't just be, here's the rules, too bad, so sad.
All right. So our final question for you is, based on your understanding of the commission, what do you think will be an individual challenge for you and then a challenge for the group?
Based on what I've seen in the Planning Commission agendas, and the webpage kind of backs this up too for the commission, most of the stuff the commission does, or maybe all of the stuff the commission does, is reactive. Somebody's going to develop or redevelop a parcel in the city, and they have to come to the commission and bring the information needed, seeking approval. The commission is also somewhat constrained, as I mentioned before, by the zoning rules and by the comp plan, but also by the fact that people have rights to develop their property as they see fit within certain limits. I suspect combining all of that together, it will require a good bit of patience and restraint, maybe, on my part, to try and proactively incorporate any kind of transportation requirements, which I don't think the Planning Commission can do on anything that it reviews. It can't say, you must do this. I understand, I think I've heard in previous meetings that they can encourage things, but that's still kind of up to the party requesting the permission. So for me, patience and a restraint to not push too hard. As far as the group goes, since I don't know any of them, I'm unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, going to have to ask for the opportunity for a rain check. Maybe I can get back to you on that one. Maybe.
All right.
Maybe.
All right, reasonable. So before we wrap up, and again, thank you for being here, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of us before you leave?
I think I overheard the previous interviewee when he left be told that he would find out next week. So the meeting on the 8th isn't on the table,
Right.
right? Are there opportunities for remote attendance, or is it, I mean, I assume it's really strongly encouraged that it's in person?
I don't, let's see, I'll have to defer to the city attorney on that. I mean, we do, as, the Data Practices Act applies to us all, including the boards and commissions, but I'll ask our city attorney, who is more fully apprised of the issues than I am.
So the open meeting law does allow members to participate remotely. They typically need to do it from a public space, so we have to inform, if you're going to be away, you need to inform the staff liaison of the public location where you would be participating from, and then they have to post that in the notice for the meeting so that people know where you are, and in theory, so that they could also attend where you are. And then there are some very limited exceptions where if you were sick and unable to attend in person, you could attend remotely, but without disclosing the location.
Okay.
And I would just say, in practice, you know, if you say, well, I travel a lot and I probably have to do 75% of the meetings remotely, that probably would make you not an ideal candidate.
Mm-hmm.
But if from time to time you need to be absent, I mean, that we've all been there, and some of us, sometimes you miss meetings and sometimes you choose to participate remotely. But you'd certainly like to be at least at a majority of the meetings in person.
Touching on that, my current business travel isn't really a thing, so.
Okay.
It's more, I thought that I saw it happen a lot with, especially the council in recent years, not so much anymore.
Right. Well, it was COVID. During COVID, that was a state of emergency, and the rules change under a state of emergency. So we did a lot of remote meetings under those circumstances. When the state of emergency was over, then we have the more restrictive and more limited data practices rules that the city attorney shared. So, okay, Council. Oh, go ahead.
Is there an expectation that you're there for 75, 80, 90, whatever percent? Is there a
I'd
minimum, or-
say 75% would be, you know, a bottom threshold. Ideally more, but I think.
I think it does say at least 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right.
No other questions?
All right. Well, thank you for coming in. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you. We'll you'll hear back next week, and we'll see you out on the roadways.
With the accoutrement I have with me tonight, you won't miss me.
Very good. I appreciate that. I
Thank you.
take care, Luke. Thanks.
Happy New Year.
All right.
Not bad.
Very good. So we did that. That brings us to item B, which is the 2025 legislative breakfast. And I will turn that over to Mr. Funk.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Mike, rather.
Thank you, Brad. So this is Council, as you know, you talked about this in December, so this is a carryover agenda item from the December study session. And bringing this back to you for your consideration this evening. And I'll kind of quickly walk through the slide that was in your packet. Just before I do that, just to, again, kind of tee up what's coming up, and that is this Friday, we do have our legislative breakfast. And so doors are open at 7:15, I believe, Sarissa? Correct? So doors will be open at 7:15. Our legislators obviously are all invited. They will be starting at 7:30, so we'll promptly start at 7:30, go for an hour.
Is it in here? Okay.
Correct. Yep, so it'll be in here. Sarissa will make sure all the doors are open for you on Friday morning. So what we decide tonight is for a couple reasons. One, it's your legislative priorities. These are items of statewide policy that are important to you as a council. What's been included in your packet, and this was included in the December study session as well, was the League of Minnesota Cities policies. They have over probably 200, I didn't count them, but probably 200 different policies that the league tackles every year. Metro Cities has 3-digit numbers in their policies. And then also, as a city, we belong to MLC. They too have legislative priorities. Those are all shared with you, so hopefully it was a reference. So hopefully you had an opportunity to kind of cross-reference those. If you didn't, that's okay, because there's just a lot there. And I would just tell you, just from what I know from all three of those entities, many of those policies do overlap. Maybe some structural differences in their sentences, but generally a lot of overarching themes together. And many of you know that because we do have a strong representation with those three entities and during their legislative policy making. So you are all included in that. What we do then is, as a city, pull out what is most important to us. So I'll quickly go through that, and really looking for you tonight to hone in on what these are, because that way it's also instruction for us as staff, knowing what your legislative priorities are. As we tease out these questions at the end, just kind of knowing what staff does with these, how do we carry these forward, and how staff, again, champions these at the Capitol during the upcoming legislative session. While I do that, one thing I'll first note is down in the lower right-hand corner of the graph or chart up on the screen is there's an asterisk. It says LMC, MLC, Metro Cities supported policies. So I went through the policies that were noted in the staff report. So it's the same policies and highlighted which ones also are reflective in those different agencies. So then starting off with bonding, again, none of these are not really new for you, but just again, kind of covering these again. Bonding, we have the Opus area, public spaces, and the marsh. Just to give you a quick update on that, staff has submitted paperwork on those two bonding issues. We submitted paperwork last year, and part of the whole legislative process, when I say paperwork, there's lots of forms to fill out. We've been asked to do that already, so even though the legislative session doesn't start until January 14th, I believe it is, the legislature's already, with their capital bonding projects, that process has already started. So we've already submitted paperwork for those two. Obviously, those are noted for the obvious. With taxes, this is our tax increment financing extension. This is a request that we had last year. If you recall, no TIF legislation was approved by the legislature, so we're looking to put that back on. That's essential for us. So again, that's not asterisk, of course, but certainly for Minnetonka, it's important that we get that extension. Last year we used Goff Public as our lobbyists. We're looking to utilize them again. We as staff have been in communication with Goff Public, both on the bonding bill requests and the TIF legislation. So they're geared up for that. In fact, Goff has already been talking to Patty Acom and gearing up for that bill this year. So they're already starting that work behind the scenes. As it relates to housing, 4 items noted there. One is flexibility in tax increment financing for affordable housing. That shows up in MLC as well. That's a strategy that staff has talked about. I think we've talked about it as a council as well, TIF being an important housing tool. The second one noted there states support affordable housing legislation while maintaining local zoning authority and decision making. I would say this is just my observation. I think in talking with the council, this is probably the one where you might disagree the most on. As staff, we tried to find language that tries to find a compromising position in there. So certainly be open to hearing, these are yours again, council, so looking to see how we land on that type of language. The third one there is preservation of NOAA, which is naturally occurring affordable housing. That too is a position by MLC, League of Minnesota Cities, Metro Cities. It is for us too. And then the last one noted under housing is group home flexibility. You've talked about that again in December, and many of you have talked about it. The mayor's talked about it. That policy also shows up in the agencies that, the other agencies that I've noted. So nothing new on that front, but for Minnetonka, I know that's important to us, especially with the setbacks, that distance setbacks. I've had a conversation with Goff Public about that as well here in the last couple of weeks, just to give them a heads up that if we, again, adopt this as a policy, we'll look to Goff Public to see how they might help us champion either statewide legislation or even special legislation. With group homes, City of Minneapolis a couple years ago got special legislation that allowed the City of Minneapolis to regulate group homes within 1,000 feet of each other, so a distance separation of 1,000 feet. Last year, Edina hired a lobbyist, and their lobbyist tried to get the same special legislation as Minneapolis. That did not happen. I've shared that with Goff Public, and Goff is aware there's some other cities like Edina and a couple other cities that are interested in this. Not sure where that will go, but just want to give you a heads up that if, assuming tonight that this stays on the list, that I continue to work with Goff Public on how they could help us with that piece of legislation. Moving on then to local control, 2 items noted there. One is the local option sales tax. Again, that is also noted in the agencies that are listed below. And then emergency medical services. This is also a carryover from last year. So we had noted in 2024, this being a priority for us, both on accountability and response times, as well as the primary service area. So that's back on the docket here. Also then, family and youth support. This is also a carryover from 2024, which is juvenile justice resources and family support resources. Talking with Chief Boerboom, that still is a need in terms of making sure we have the right resources and helping our community, helping those in our community, and helping law enforcement also in their efforts. And then 3 items were noted for awareness topics. One is data practices. This is, I think, also a carryover. Just some quick background on that. 10 years ago, I served as the chair of a data practices task force with the League of Minnesota Cities. And in fact, I think that's probably when I first met Corrine on that task force, because Corrine was on the task force representing Minnetonka. And the issues on data practices have been unchanged the last 10 years. It's a tricky one, it's dicey, it's hard. From a city perspective, we always have concerns over just the volume of data practice requests we get and the amount of resources it takes in terms of staff time, printing, researching, fulfilling data practice requests. That's always been shared with legislators as a concern. Finding some legislation and balancing that is very, very difficult. The newspaper lobbyists have a strong lobbyist, and so anytime the Newspaper Association sees attempts to change data practice law, they're in full force on opposing position. But nonetheless, I know it's still a concern for cities. It comes up still all the time at the league and other places as well. E-bikes, you've mentioned e-bikes. In talking with the league, this is important for them as well. The league has also heard from a number of cities just on how e-bikes has become a challenge. Not sure what the solution is. And the league has talked about having a task force, so we might see more coming up with the league and creating a task force to work with the legislature on what possible rules could be developed around better regulations or tighter regulations around e-bikes. And then last noted is election law. The wording here is early voting flexibility, and really the intent was to look at the 46 days prior to election day. As currently as the election, early voting starts 45 days prior to election day. The league and Metro Cities has noted this as a concern as well, and it's noted here for Minnetonka also. So those, quickly going through the list, again, many of these have been unchanged since December. Kind of massage this based on the comments the council had at your December study session. In talking with a couple of council members today, there might be some discussion on perhaps environment. And then I also had a conversation with Patsy on a potential awareness topic to be added. So I'll stop there, and I think maybe turn back over to you, Brad, and facilitate conversation. We're just really looking tonight on honing in on what our legislative priorities are. We have to quickly turn this around, so we're ready to have a handout on Friday morning.
Yeah. Well, I think, Council, any comments or additions or thoughts that you have? Just a quick observation. It was very interesting. I thought that you're adding the asterisks indicating, you know, it seems like we don't have a ton of original ideas here in Minnetonka, because, I mean, these are consistent with, you know, what our membership organizations are. But I think this is important because it says these are the areas that we want our membership organizations to focus on, and these are important, and we're elevating these with our legislators. So I think that's good. So any comments or additions? Deb, it looks like you have a comment.
I have a couple. One is, thank you for saying that, Mayor, and I would say that moving forward, actually, if there's some way, I don't want to make more work for staff, but to at least do that, or maybe even list a few numbers in a table that list the policies, so that we're not digging through documents that are 86 to 150 pages long, so that we can see where their policies intersect, where our member organization policies intersect with our priorities, because it just makes it easier to make the case, right? Without digging through it. Some of us are familiar because we're on policy committees, but it's still a lot to dig through. And then the only other thing that struck me was that the environment is so important, and we have done things like we just approved the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. There's nothing to do with sustainability, climate, environment. We have a huge tree die-off that's a statewide challenge that maybe, you know, I think it's going to be hard with our new legislature, but, you know, just finding resources to replenish the tree canopy, support our CAP. And also there's been a lot of talk about, even tonight on CNN, there was a another PFAS story. It's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. The state has done great things, passing good legislation. We have a department that deals with PFAS now, but the EPA just encouraged farmers to spread biosolids without having to test for PFAS. And I'm in a group that has gotten presentations from a group of scientists about the tests that they're doing with PFAS on farms in Maine, where they've spread biosolids and cattle is dying. So I think there are some environmental things in there that are going to affect our city and possibly cost us a lot of money. So that was just, maybe it's an awareness issue, but any one of those things would be good to put on there.
Other comments? Patsy?
Yeah, Mike and I talked about it today, about the failure of Excel to respond to the residents and stuff, and to, it just happens so much in this city, it seems like, that we've become their service center, their customer service center, and we have, like, we can do as much as we can do, we still don't have any power to, like, I feel helpless.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we need to talk about that, like, somehow gain a little bit of
Holding Excel's feet to the fire.
Yes, and we do the best we can, but
Well, and I would just add, because I think it's really a good point, Patsy, and I hadn't really thought about it too much, but I think you're saying that we've become their customer service center, and perhaps that's what we ought to push for, is say, well, if they're gonna pass the work on to us, we want to be able to collect a fee for doing the work. They either need to take control and provide the service, or allow cities to add a franchise fee that can't just be a pass-through like their other franchise fees are, so that, you know, let's have a policy that reflects the work that cities are doing, because we are not alone. This is not a Minnetonka problem.
Right.
This is a problem in virtually every city. And then you look at California, and, you know, where they're burning, you know, burning half the state down due to issues with power lines and so forth, and we need accountability with these monopolies. I mean, monopoly power is significant, yet, and it's regulated. We have regulated monopolies, but in reality, they're acting like they're not regulated. They're just monopolies, and I think elevating that issue is probably a very good idea.
yeah, and they just dismiss the residents' complaints and their issues, and you know.
I think they feel oftentimes if you ignore it long enough, it'll go away.
Right.
So,
And thank you. Oh,
no, you're good.
Yeah,
You're
thank you,
good.
Brad. And just to piggyback onto that, a suggestion, we want to go back to environment, but piggybacking on Patsy's comment, as an awareness topic, I would suggest that we note something along the lines of utility, company accountability, and customer
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I
The
think it's
fiber
more than
optic.
Xcel
That's
Energy.
The fiber
Oh,
optic.
yeah.
Absolutely,
That would-
absolutely.
Okay.
And going back to what Deb said too, I just had a thought. Because, I mean, clearly the political landscape is different in this legislative session than it was in the last one. But you also hear very kind of red-oriented people talking about, well, we can solve the climate crisis if we just plant 1 trillion trees. And while I don't think if it were that simple, that would be being done. But I do think having a request on reforestation and perhaps state funds for reforestation because of the importance of trees and adding oxygen to the environment. And again, trees are not going to solve all the environmental issues, but they are a big part of the solution. And maybe being specific about having state funding available for reforestation may be something that all cities would have an interest in. So I just throw that out as a comment. Deb, I don't know what you think
Yeah,
about
and I mean, it is a statewide problem, and the thing is, it does solve things that are very quantifiable, whether, because it's
Right.
just data-driven, so the urban heat islands and all those things, and it's just been, I mean, it looks bad out there, because it is bad, and it's just, it's a thing that every community is dealing with across the whole state. And, I mean, at least it's climate action and adaptation plan adjacent, even if we can't get
Right.
support for implementing the plan necessarily. But I just felt like it's one of our big citywide values, and it wasn't reflected in anything.
I think that's a good catch.
So, and it's a big sustainability thing. There's so many sustainability things we could talk about, but I thought that was kind of a low-hanging fruit that people on all sides of the aisle would, people across the political spectrum love their trees here in Minnetonka, so,
Even most developers agree with it,
yeah.
even most.
Actually,
Other thoughts, Mike?
Oh.
Paula, there you are.
Yeah. I actually had some as well, and thanks, Mike, for cross-referencing. I know we talked about doing that today, and I did a lot of that. There actually is stuff in the policy positions about extending the current reforestation plan, so that is something that we could do. I also was concerned to make sure that we had something that reflects the CAT plan, and some things that I cross-checked across the policies that do reflect on issues of our CAT plan, and I think I sent a summary in the notes where I found them for you, Mike, is construction codes, MLC, LMC and Metro Cities. I think both talked about sustainable construction codes being incorporated more into the state building code, and it also including an appendix of more advanced standards, and allowing cities to adopt those advanced standards, as well as making sure we're getting greener with our building code. I think that's something that, is a no cost. We're not going to get anything that costs money this session, aside from bonding, I don't think. I think it's going to be highly unlikely. So, I was kind of looking for things that wouldn't cost money. The other thing is regulation of pesticide and environmentally harmful items. So not only would we like more state regulation, but allowing more local control to regulate. Right now, there's a few cities that have been allowed to do that, and extending that to other cities, smaller cities, would be helpful and would be in alignment with our CAP program. Also, waste and stormwater reuse, especially at the residential level in terms of gray water reuse. There's a lot of people now who are wanting to build and reuse gray water, and I think we need more flexibility in order to do that. Again, these could all be under the package of one thing. And then producer, retailer, packaging laws. I know that we have one that starts in 2032, but could just like the state building codes, you know, could there be things that, you know, whether it's banning plastic bags or requiring compostable takeout materials earlier than the 2032 state law that's going to take effect. So those were all things that, you know, kind of were, and I included in my notes to you, Mike, where that was all of those were reflected in one way or another in LMC or Metro Cities priority policies, legislation, and as are the authority for cities to use traffic cameras. That's in both. And given my particular interest in traffic calming, and we're talking about e-bikes, I thought that could be potentially apropos. And then was just wondering if we're going to have Highway 7, anything about Highway 7 in there, given the number of accidents recently. If we have that, I was just curious, not that it has to be included or anything, but we've talked about that in terms of the study group and money for that. If there's anything going on with there, since this is hopefully going to be a bonding year, if we have any plans for that, and that's more of a question than a suggestion. So those are kind of the things that stuck out to me as I was going through it this weekend.
And I think, you know, I think we've got, on Highway 7, I think we've got the process in going, and we don't have any specific asks because we don't have bonding asks right now. And we're really waiting for that MnDOT study to come
Okay.
back.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't know.
so then we can be specific. And basically, we've told people both at the state level and the federal level that we're working on this, these things are in process, and we will be back.
Okay.
Because there will be specific asks, but I don't think we have them today. Mike, do you know more than that?
No, we don't. I
So
don't
the
have much
study's
more to
still
add there.
ongoing.
The study's
Got it.
ongoing,
Thank
and,
you.
and
I
that
wasn't
is,
sure about
that
that.
is going to fuel what we seek. Kizzy,
I guess I have one topic that I don't see up there. I would like to see something addressed around small businesses or new businesses. I don't know, you know, what we're doing in the Southwest area or in Minnetonka, but you know, I would like to see more support with new businesses and smaller businesses. So maybe a conversation around that with our legislative folks. And I don't know exactly how that would look, but just making sure we're starting to really push support for businesses.
I can tell you that I had a meeting today with Peter Frosch of Greater MSP. He's talking specifically about, you know, how can we make public-private partnerships focus on business more effective? Because he said, in his experience, the public-private partnerships have been very much about the private aspect of it being focused on what gets done, and the public being more focused on process. And he said, we need to be more action-oriented in terms of that. And I think that, and we were talking about, there was one example of, there's a bankers group, and there's a lot of dead bank branches around the metro, and how could we bring the interests of, he cited one example where there was a bank branch, and they put together developers and these banking executives, and they kind of created a new bank branch, kind of like the Highland Bank situation, where in the main level there was commercial and there was banking, and then but also affordable housing, and you know, and I know that the Wells Fargo redevelopment site, we heard from former Councilmember Tony Wagner and said, well, our vision 10 years ago was different than that, and he was disappointed because that redevelopment there, which I think is, we have all agreed is a good project, but it doesn't contain any housing, and he was really disappointed at that. And this idea of kind of juxtaposing those and focusing on business opportunities, and how can we, bring our values together, focus on DEI, on support of businesses and our support of housing, there might be some interesting opportunities there. So this is a pretty general conversation. It wasn't specific yet, but Peter Frosch is going to be speaking at the Regional Council of Mayors next month, and I think that we're kind of talking about how to make how to make collaboration with greater MSP and with cities more action-oriented, and I think that's consistent. It's not necessarily what you were talking about, but it's consistent with it, because I think we want to be committed to our business community.
That makes sense. I do think about, how do you combine those two, public and private, and just see
Yeah.
quite a bit, because I keep saying this, I go to Minneapolis and I just see Minneapolis doing things that, even Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I'm just like, I would like for Minnetonka to start doing more to support smaller businesses
Mhm.
in our city.
I don't know, is that a state legislative thing that?
No,
we have?
I don't,
That's what I said, I don't really know. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel if
Yeah.
juvenile justice resources and family supports resources, I feel like you can have resources for businesses. If you have that as a topic,
That's
then
fair.
you can have that as a resource for businesses.
Yeah, no, that's,
I don't know what it looks like or how it's written up, but that's kind of my thought process.
well, I think, bring that up topically, I think, on Friday, that works. I mean, we're going to have a discussion. We're not going to just make a presentation, be done, and get input on. And then you've cited Minneapolis and St. Paul. If you have any specific examples that we can better understand what we'd be asking for, I think that would be helpful. I don't know, Mike, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Maybe a couple thoughts. With the awareness topics, what I would suggest adding is, and we've already talked about it, is the utility and fiber optic company accountability and customer service. The other awareness topic is we could at least mention Highway 7 and of what's happening.
It's coming,
What's
yeah.
coming, so we could briefly mention Highway 7 and the
Yeah.
importance of Highway 7, so we could add Highway 7 as awareness topic.
Yeah.
Perhaps changing the wording, so family and youth support, perhaps calling that support and resources, and we could have juvenile, family, and small business.
Yeah, I think that.
Something to that effect. I'll keep.
What does everyone think? Does that work for
Yep,
people?
yep, that works.
All right.
And then with environment, adding kind of its own separate bullet point. And what I have written down, I have a few things noted down, just sustainability, EAB, our CAP, support our CAP, PFAS, gray water, pesticides, all. I can do some, I think I've got enough here to kind of capture something about environment. Sounds like there's support for having an environment section.
Yeah, I think
on
that's
here.
good. I mean, I think we don't want to risk
yeah.
having too many
definitely.
things and just watering everything down. But I do think, and I agree with what Deb said, that the environment is so much a part of our identity that it's not having it here does appear to be a kind of a hole for Minnetonka. So I think adding that is good. And I think Kizzy makes a good point. We do want to be supportive of, small businesses or entrepreneurial businesses, but also we're proud of our business community, and we feel that we've got a strong business community. So I think a mention there is worthwhile. But I like the way you did it, tied, providing
Yeah.
support. These are three areas that we think are important.
It's great.
Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
That's good.
And we haven't watered it down too much, hopefully.
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
does that work for
Yeah,
you,
I
Mike?
think- yeah, that does. These are yours, so.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And I know we were trying to keep it so limited, but, to get it back and just realize there was nothing about one of our pillars in there.
Our core.
Yeah.
And with the environment, I'll do a little cross-referencing too, to make sure it's somewhat in alignment with the other
Yep.
Yeah,
folks.
after our conversation, Mike, I was careful to go through and look at things that, you asked us to be, or at least me, to be specific in terms of what, so I was.
Yeah, you were, thank you. I haven't had time to look at it yet,
Yeah,
as I briefly saw your
but, I mean, I
message.
thought that was kind of the criterion, so, hence.
Because
hence
it's helpful, and why you want to be specific, it's not only helpful for staff, but where it's helpful for our legislators is to say, all right, well, we want you to, as a legislative matter, be sensitive or be, watch out for the environment. Well,
What does that mean?
What does that mean? What legislation?
What do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do to
Sure,
act on
yeah. So,
our
Right.
behalf? So that's why.
so I have very specific
Yes, you
things
did.
in there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Moving on.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're good. A couple of quick comments. I mean, this is a meaningful list, but it's a manageable list. And I've seen too many cities that put together big policy documents and hand them, and try and talk to all of them, and they speak in paragraphs and pages rather than in bullet points. And I think that if we can do a one-pager and we can have a profitable conversation and make our key points on each of these, we're going to be way ahead of trying to provide too much detail because, I mean, it's a fire hose for all these legislators, and then particularly new ones, it's even more of a fire hose. And we want to support them, we want to ask for stuff, but we want to make it simple and understandable. So if we're all good, we'll
Yep.
move on.
Yep.
All right. Let me find my right page here. So that's the legislative breakfast. That's on Friday, 7:30. Show up at 7:15 or so. Next is, and I'm going to turn this over to Mike, the 2025 City Council Study Session Work Plan.
Okay, thank you. Sarissa, you just want to, again, I want to keep things moving. Can you back up real quick?
Yeah.
2 slides? We put on their committee assignments. I had to try to just look at where legislators are serving.
Yeah.
These are not final. I was able to locate Representative Acom, Representative Felkner. So
Yeah.
the House was pretty clear on where folks are serving. The Senate looks to be undecided, at least and I'd reached out even to the league. So with Swedzinski, he's on those committees. For the newest elected senators, either they haven't been placed on a committee or they haven't updated their website. So
Yeah.
Well, there's only one.
Right.
Since Anne was the only one who is.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I've
so,
been told she's on transportation.
transportation and maybe capital, I think capital, and maybe education are the things that but definitely transportation.
So once we get this updated, we'll get it updated for the council, that way you know too where they all serve.
Good.
Okay, thank you. All right, study session work plan, again, carry over from last meeting. We did put in here the Mentimeter. And then Councilmember Coakley was absent at the December study session, so she had a chance to then also participate in the Mentimeter. A couple things changed. One of those that was elevated with three inquiries was youth programming. So that has been, I slid that over into the study session work plan. So anything that has a 1 or 0, 1 or 2 is not reflected in the study session work plan for next year. The items with 3 and 4 are. So with that, thanks, Sarissa, thank you. So just to quickly run through the changes. What's that? What's that, sir?
Did we make a change?
What's that?
Did we make a change earlier? Did we not? I didn't update it if we did.
Okay, yeah, I'll verbalize it. Yeah. So this was, I think, what was in your packet. On February, again, I'll kind of note the changes. Well, we have e-bikes. Well, let's just quickly run through the list. So January, well, we don't need to talk about tonight. January 27th, we will do the Senior Advisory Board and EDAC sustainability interview. So that'll be at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
5 o'clock prior to that January 27th council meeting. So we'll start early on the 27th for the rest of the interviews.
I think it's at 4.
4 o'clock.
Yes.
All right, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
So 4 o'clock on the 27th. Reason we did planning commission tonight is so we could get those folks selected, because there's important planning commission meeting coming up in
Yep.
February, first part of February, and we just, timing wise, we need to get those done tonight. So January 27th, we'll start early. Then in February study session, we'll do the park board interviews. We'll have Peter Leatherman here on the community survey, group home clustering, and e-bikes. March will be director presentations on the budget, trail connections, and then we'll have, with each quarter, a 30-minute open time For March, and if you skip down then to September, both those are 30-minute open sessions / conference debriefings. So there'll be a couple opportunities to talk about conferences. Tried to time those up with NLC and then League. March 21st, I want to point out, is council retreat. So as staff, we looked at our calendars from a staff level, and boy, I tell you what, March and April is very, very
Challenging.
full. Very, very challenging. It's March 21st is a Friday. Hoping that's trying to cement that in if we can for a Friday to do a council retreat.
Just Friday or?
Just Friday.
Okay.
And what are you anticipating the hours of that?
Whatever works for the council. Whatever works. We don't have a consultant hired yet, so we would have to find a consultant for that day. Don't have topics picked out yet. We're just trying to find a date, get something held on a calendar.
Okay.
What are the NLC dates?
They're
March
11th. I mean, I know my wife's birthday is the 11th, and I know it's her birthday is in the middle of it, so I think it's probably
Yeah.
9th, 10th, 11th, and
Yeah.
12th.
It's 10th through 12th is NLC.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing is that, like, my committee meeting, sometimes it's before that, so who knows? I'm waiting to find out exactly when the committee meeting is.
But it's not going to run
Right.
past
No.
But
Hill
it should
Day.
be before, if we do it on the 21st, NLC will have already happened.
Right. Yes, it will.
Correct.
That's such a hard week. We got the state of the city that week. We're going to be out of town. I mean, that's just
We're gonna be-
really hard for
We're gonna be
people who
tired.
have work obligations. Because that's a whole week out, basically. There's no other. That's like the worst week you could probably pick for me.
It is really hard. Hey, we look at what, Miranda, we pull up the calendar here and
I'm gonna talk to spring break. I think
Look-
it's like the 28th and then the first week of April.
we had Easter, between Easter in there, spring breaks for our high schools.
And there's a couple of holidays.
There's holidays in there. And we started like looking at what dates were available. It's like, that was
None.
it.
Yeah.
That was it. Unless you want to do a Saturday. I know that's not popular either.
But, so spring break is out because of staff will be
In
out?
some ways, it's more popular.
Not necessarily for
than
staff. I guess we've always been
Take
sensitive
time
around
off.
spring break.
I mean, my kids are grown, so.
I mean,
I have a kid, I'm sorry.
I could
I
make
know,
it
I'm
work.
just-
It's
but-
just,
But she's not like a little kid that you have to, like, you know, if you had
If you
an
travel for
8-year-old,
spring
you had to
break.
keep, yeah, but if you're traveling, then yeah.
Yeah, because most people, well, I travel a lot for spring break, so maybe possibly traveling. But Saturday is open, I'm open to a Saturday. I don't
I'm
know if
open
people-
to a Saturday
I mean,
because I
I'll
have to
just-
take
I'll
paid
just
time off
make
for
it work.
this.
I mean, it sounds like I'm the only one with that issue, so I'll just.
Well, I
figure
mean,
it
I
out.
prefer the Saturday, to be honest with you, because on Friday, that 21st, I have a leaders meeting that I need to go to. So I would prefer the Saturday.
I mean, I'd be open to a Saturday.
For like 4 hours on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you have a
Or some-
Saturday that works? What Saturday would you like to hone in on?
The 22nd? Right.
22nd,
Of March.
29th?
Oh, shit.
29th, I
29th, you'd be
probably
running
won't be
into the
here.
spring break
22nd might
issue,
work.
right?
Spring break is, I think, for staff, we can make, I know, we'll have some directors out.
Yeah, 31st through the 4th. Spring break.
So that would be the start of it.
Yeah. And you're gone for those weekends when you do people are
Mhm,
traveling
if
for
you
spring
wanna
break,
travel, yeah.
The 22nd, I have a meeting from 10:30 to 1:30.
Scheduling is so much fun, don't you think?
It's always hard.
Yeah, you know, it sounds like it's gonna be hard. Let's,
Yeah, I mean, if that's the date that seemed to work,
Yeah.
then.
I mean, I can make it work, it's just paid time off. Like, I have a regular staff job, and I'm taking time off for NLC and lots of stuff this year, so.
Or is there Saturday in April? Like April 5th?
well, that's spring break.
Passover is the
Oh, yeah.
12th through the 20th. Those 2
Are we envisioning something like a Dr. Jean type of a?
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah, okay.
Keep it during the week.
Something fun, team building.
Yep.
April 26th.
That works.
April
April
26th, did you say?
No.
It's the one, that's the one Saturday. I mean, I'm hosting my niece's bridal shower.
What's going
that
on with
day.
the 19th, April 19th?
It's Passover.
Oh, Passover.
And Easter weekend
12th?
too, right?
The 12th?
The 12th is the start of Passover. I have the holiday calendar.
But at the end of Passover, like being the only Jewish person that'll be there, it's okay. The beginning's not so good. The end is okay. So, yeah.
So what was that, 19th?
The beginning isn't, but the end is okay. Did you say that, Deb? The end is okay?
Yeah, the
So
19th
the
is better
19th,
than the
yeah.
12th.
Now,
19th could
I'll
work.
put a wrinkle into that one.
Yep.
I will be taking a vacation. My last, I'm going to be going to Spain.
Okay.
So I'm leaving Friday the 11th and coming back on Sunday the 20th. So I'll be out the week of the 14th.
Was there a chance we could do it in Spain?
I was just
Yeah,
gonna ask
let's-
that.
You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I just want to be helpful here.
I can dial in remotely, but I'm pretty unsure of the connection.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we want.
And I won't have a
No,
computer.
yeah.
Oh,
We
you
wanna
come?
go to
Oh,
Spain.
Yeah.
sure.
You want us there with you?
Yeah.
We'll have a good time.
We want to ruin your vacation.
We can't make one day work, but we could make a week trip.
We can make a week.
Yeah, we could probably squeeze it in. Well, we're not, you know, we could spend a lot of time on this. I mean, let's just kind of talk about a process of maybe us sharing, you know, each sharing a handful of dates, you know, on Saturdays or a Friday or
We
Saturdays.
could do
and
how about we do a doodle poll?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put a
be a lot
doodle
easier.
poll together with a lot of
Yeah.
Fridays and Saturdays and see what
Yeah,
we come
let's
up with.
see what you come up with, and let's do the best we can. I mean, that's, all right, we agree, we agree.
We
We don't,
agree.
we don't vote, but
Keep
we're,
moving.
we're agreeing to do
All
a
right.
doodle poll here.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
All right,
So April, fire station analysis, service level objectives. May, budget kickoff, community survey comes back. We'll have community facilities, that's the Marsh and the community center, et cetera. June is CIP, EIP, 30-minute open time. July is housing, and that's where then we put youth programming. That was the one that
Yep.
goes up. And then August, budget, infrastructure study, asset management. September, zoning rewrites coming to you. And then Julie believes that's a whole study session just on the zoning
Yep.
rewrite update. October, city manager review process and Opus. November is the enterprise funds. I know that's usually a whole study session with all the utilities included and the 30-minute open time. And then December is kind of a repeat
right.
every year. Now I know we got some comments I think from council. Either I can verbalize those or maybe council wants to state some suggested changes on this as well.
Yeah, and so, well, why don't you summarize them
Okay.
quick, and then we'll, and then I've got a quick comment, and then if anybody else has comments, they're welcome to make if that works.
Sounds good. And let's see, I think it was talking with Councilmember Calvert, the city manager review process, looking to bump that up to either April or June. I think that's possible, just knowing those topics. So if we, I think just starting that sooner than later, so we could do that in April or June, perhaps April. I would suggest maybe
Yeah,
April.
I think that'd be good, yep.
April would be good. That was one change. So we'll do that. Sorry, pull up my notes quick.
And while you're doing that, are we gonna discuss changing the city manager review process or just start the process?
It's like addressing the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about the, I think,
Yeah.
looking at the process,
Yeah,
the
I think,
form.
I think there is a pretty broad consensus that we can improve this.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we want to talk about that.
Okay.
I had one other thing, which was thinking about like the boards and commissions. I was almost wondering if we wanted to have a 13-month calendar because I think like the application period isn't it's not necessarily bad, but I think we can be more planful and sort of know more ahead of time before the new year starts when the interviews are going to be, to maybe condense it and maybe even make it just part of next year's first study session, you know, have a bunch of the interviews maybe as the first study. So it's just, that's one thing that I was thinking about, is sort of thinking about the boards and commission interviews a little bit differently as part of the work plan.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
think there's some logic there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Deb, and Deb and I talked about that. I think what got goofed this year is it was just an oversight, and because when we usually do those interviews in the study session,
Right.
in the January study session. This year in 2025, the first meeting of the year was tonight, a study session versus a regular meeting.
Right.
Generally, the study session has been the second or third week in January, so we had a little more time. Just unintentionally, when we scheduled this as a study session, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
then it was like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, now we bumped up
Yeah.
against a tight time crunch.
Well, yeah,
So we need
it's-
to be more mindful of when we schedule those January study sessions, so we're,
But I mean, like if it's just part of the, like make it a 13-month so that even if it's just a placeholder and it is later in the
Yep.
month, I feel like
it's a good suggestion.
we'll
Yep.
think about it
Yeah.
more.
agreed.
All right.
Speaking as the person that does this kind of thing for my job.
Yes, I get it.
Very good
I
suggestion.
get it, yeah. So, Mike, did you have anything further?
I think that that was my summary.
Okay. All right, well, I'll make a quick comment too. So Mike and I talked a little bit today, and I know that there are some people who would like to lobby for maybe some additions to this. And what we talked about was, well, we did the Mentimeter, we got everyone's input, and we decided. So that's good. But what I recommended, and Mike thought this might be a good idea, so I throw it out for everyone's consideration, is that, you know what? Let's, in June, we've got 30 minutes of open time there. We'll be knocking a lot of stuff off our Mentimeter list, and then let's do the Mentimeter again in the middle of the year and see if we have additions or priorities so that we want to maybe change the back half of the year and update it with new information, new projects, so that, you know, we're holding true to what we collectively decided. But 6 months, things can change, and there can be new issues that come up. Certainly, a lot of the stuff will be knocked off.
Yeah.
You know, and so we can see if we can get critical mass on others by having a Mentimeter exercise in the June study session. What does everyone think?
Yep,
Fine by me.
I'm open.
That's fine.
Sure.
All right?
That's good.
And that's a good way to honor what we've done, but also have flexibility. So if we want to get things added or reprioritize, we can do it. We'll do it in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I like it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Kimberly?
Yeah, so I was just gonna, so Mike and I talked about, like having a process for the open time, cause I had said, you know, like I'm not, some of my things didn't get the 3 votes, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's fair.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna, you know, try and push for that now. But if there's time, it might be something, you know, there might be something that I wanna use those open times for, but like having maybe, I don't know, like a sign up or something, so people know ahead of time what you're gonna discuss, so
Yeah.
people can be prepared to discuss it, and then have people have like a time limit in
Yeah.
mind
Yep.
of their presentation, so like, you know, you get 5 minutes to,
Add some structure to the open time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. And then another thing that Mike and I talked about is say, okay, let's say I have an issue that I think is important and it didn't get the votes needed. Well, by knowing that we're going to have a Mentimeter session on June 16th, you know, I can't lobby the whole council, but I can talk to two other council members and say, you know what? This is why this is important to me. So, and maybe there's even a little horse trading. Well, I'll support yours if you support mine. I mean, if we're looking for Mentimeter support, you know, that's a way to get it. And that's, you know, again, we want to be respectful of the
Tell it
open
like it
meeting
is.
law, but we can do it. Pardon me?
I said, tell it like it is, yes, they're right. It's been
So-
going on for decades. In that depth, but yeah. Sure.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
All right.
move on.
Do you have what you need, Mike?
Yeah, I think, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Thank you, council. So the other thing I was just gonna mention with that 30-minute open time is, it's meant to be flexible, but to have some structure
Yeah.
to it. To have some sort of, again, form. I know Paul had brought something up to me a while ago about a form, so I think we got some sort of form,
Yeah.
make it easy, but
Yeah.
something, so
Yeah.
we're not coming into that 30-minute open time with
like
Not
a
2 hours worth of work?
brainstorming session
Yeah.
or
Yeah, 'cause
whatever.
we're gonna make it productive,
Have
30 minutes
Right.
goes quick.
before-
Yeah,
Yeah.
be able to.
And I would say, you know, if anybody has any suggestions on how to make that productive, or, you know, has a form in mind that they'd like to share with the city manager that he could share with us, I think that would be good. I think our input is welcome.
And
I
I think
think.
Paula had her hand up.
I'm sorry, Paula.
Oh, no, I think you answered my question, so that's fine.
All right. Good.
All right,
Okay, so that's,
we're ready to roll for 2025. Thank you.
all right,
Council.
that's encouraging. All right. Just have to keep remembering where my agenda is. Here we are. So let's see. So I've got 7:45, so we've got 45 minutes. We're done with item C, the shared values of the Minnetonka City Council. Mike, I'll turn that back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll do the quick handoff to Miranda, who's been working on this agenda item with you.
Yeah,
Great,
so
thank you.
This is, I think, our third time seeing this one, so I think the last one, what I heard from council was number 13 in particular. It used to say non-political, nonpartisan, and then I know Councilmember Maley had thrown out some language that I went and listened to and took from, so I did change it based on what I heard from council to objective and impartial, and then put we are dedicated to making decisions that prioritize the best interests of the community that align with the city's mission and vision. So I'm going to give that back to you to, one, review that, and then if there are any other changes throughout the shared values as well.
All right. Well, council, any other suggestions? I mean, I think this moves in the direction that we provided, but I also think that there might be a few comments out there. I have one, so, but I will allow my fellow council members to go first.
So I mean, I'm not going to beat the dead horse, and I really understand and respect why people wanted to change it, but I also have consistently disagreed, and I really just want to say just up front that there is a sense of partisanship, even if I agree with the political philosophies that are being put forward in general. There is a sense of partisanship that has been sort of infiltrating the campaign, certainly, and some of the positions that people are taking. And this sort of gets to what we're trying to say. And so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I also feel like it really doesn't sort of get at the pressures that I think are having an effect on the discourse, the materials that are shared, the sort of special interests that are putting pressure on the way we talk about things. And I think there's value in some of those special interests. I think listening makes it really important, but I think that when it comes to us making decisions, that those are simply, one part of the whole puzzle of all of the viewpoints that we have to listen to. And what I'm hoping that we can get away from is we need to take our values with us, of course, but try to minimize the pressure from outside interests and political positions that may or may not be truly supported by data or what's best for our city. So I just get a little worried that by taking sort of the nonpartisanship out of this, it's not really addressing some of the issues. So I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Deb. Anyone else want to comment? I mean, if not, I talked to Deb earlier today, and I tend to agree with the perspective that she shared, is that I really think being nonpartisan is a key value of elected city officials. I think that when you bring partisanship into it, the discussion is diminished, one way or the other, whether it's red partisanship or blue partisanship or anywhere in between. So I tweaked the language here, and I'll just run this by you, and you can tell me if you like it or hate it or anywhere in between. But so objective and immaterial, this is what I wrote. We are dedicated to making decisions that prioritize the best interests of the entire community, are nonpartisan, and are aligned with the city's mission and vision. And when I say nonpartisan, I mean, I think it's important for council members to check their partisanship at the door. But I also recognize that we are all partisan. We all have partisan views. But, you know, kind of separating our partisan objectives with city objectives, we're all going to be influenced by whatever perspective we have from a partisanship perspective. But I kind of look at it like religion. And you know what? We all come from different perspectives of faith or non-faith or whatever it is, and they influence how we make decisions. But we don't want to say, well, we're gonna be a Jewish council or a Christian council or a Muslim council or an atheist council. We want to be a council that does things that the best for the entire city, even though we individually are influenced by our values, which are religious values and political values and things like that. So I think it's important, from my view, I agree with what Deb said. It's important that we be nonpartisan, but let's not act like we're not partisan people. Mm-hmm. We are. But our goal here is not to deliver a Republican agenda or a Democratic agenda. We're here to develop a Minnetonka agenda, what we believe is in the best interests of our residents. So feel free to critique that, but that's my take on it.
So,
go ahead.
I'm just gonna end, like, however the wording ends up.
Yep.
It's fine. I just will say, like, I think it's kind of a chicken or an egg sort of a thing. Like, for me, my politics are informed by my values, not the other way around. So, like, I come in with my beliefs, and that leads me to certain groups or organizations, but I can't think of a single decision where part of my decision-making process was, what would this party think of it, or what would another party think of it? So, I think we are nonpartisan, and I think a lot of times just things are politicized that I don't think should be considered political, and people take sides along party lines on things that I don't think necessarily should be that way. Mm-hmm. So you can be accused of being partisan when, again, you're just following your values and trying to do what's best for the city, like Deb said. Yeah. So that was the reason for my initial objection to that wording, because like what is nonpartisan? I think the way some people use nonpartisan means apolitical. None of us are apolitical. Right. So I don't know. I think it's people assign so much weight to those words that it's a hard thing to live up to. So.
And if I'll very briefly, because I haven't kind of had a dog in this fight. I mean, I really understand where everybody's coming from, so I don't want to say I don't care, but don't have really strong feelings on it. I do think that, the word the phrase nonpartisan, word nonpartisan sometimes is used in a political, it's been used against me in a political way, in a way where I was like, that's just not, I really vehemently disagreed with it. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes having that word out there does give people ammunition that, so I understand the concern. I also think if you're either gonna kind of subscribe to these values in your role and in your campaign or whatever, or you're not, and the people that aren't.
Right.
So I think this is good, and it feels a little symbolic, and so I think we should move on, but
Yeah, that, I mean, at the end of the day, like, this is for us, and I doubt there's gonna be too many residents
Right.
digging this out.
They're not posting it in their, on their,
And
over their
we're
dining
over
room
it.
table.
So, right, so, yeah, so like, I'm not gonna fight over
Mhm.
the final language.
Yeah.
If nonpartisan is in there, fine, if not, also fine.
Well, I agree with you. I don't want, I mean, I think it's, you know, I think this whole notion of being nonpartisan is important. And I think you can be a highly partisan individual and still wear a nonpartisan, hold a nonpartisan office and do it in a nonpartisan way. I think that's the case. But I also think, you know, I'm not in love with either party, so it's pretty easy for me to say I'm an independent and I work hard to be nonpartisan because I am not aligned with either party. I have fellow mayors. I mean, one mayor I won't mention by name, but you all know him. He's not male, not a female, just to be mysterious here. But he and I were talking, and he said, "Well, when I run for office, there's not an R or a D behind my name." And I've said to this mayor, well, you and I are different from that perspective. You are a highly partisan individual who holds a nonpartisan office. I'm a nonpartisan person who holds a nonpartisan office, and there's a difference. But either one of us has a right to hold the office and represent what our nonpartisanship represents. But I think, I don't like it when, and this is my personal belief, not saying it should be shared. But I really like the idea that our local government is nonpartisan, and we don't run with a partisan label attached to us. And so I think reflecting that in our values is good. But I am very respectful of what Kimberly is saying because, people attach labels to us all the time, and 98% of the time they're wrong. But people, we've all knocked on doors, right? Have you never been asked, "Oh, what party are you in?" I mean, every time you knock, every time. And so, again, we live in a partisan world. We want to try and reflect nonpartisan values, but at the same time, that's the thing that everyone wants to know. They want to put us in a box, so they have a reason for voting for us or against us.
So
And-
that's good, so put the nonpartisan in there.
Well, I don't want to. I mean,
But
I feel it's.
I'm saying that's what I think we should do, because even even at the door, when someone says, "What party are you from?" I say, "This is a nonpartisan office."
Right.
Well, I know that, but what are you? So it's not. You know what they'll say? I know that, but what are you? Who are you affiliated with? So if we say this in our values, then it's clearer. And maybe if if a resident does want to make copies and put it in front of over their dining room table, then they can see. And when someone comes to the door, they go, "Oh, wait, I forgot. That's a nonpartisan."
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
good luck with that.
Like,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. I mean,
I'm
people are
taking
going
it to the extreme.
Right.
People are,
This is-
and I don't want to
we need
belabor this point. I
know.
know Rebecca doesn't want to belabor this point.
Neither do I. Let's
But
move on.
but I do. I think the notion of the way governance is, I think it's an important point, and I think we're in agreement. The question is, do we want the terminology in there or not? And I'm going to be quiet, which I know you don't believe, but.
And I also, I'm not going to beat it at a horse. I just wanted people to know how I felt because I really feel kind of strongly about it, so.
Okay.
So where are we on the wording? Because I think most of us
I think
don't want to fight about
the
it.
mayor's wording is fine with
Yeah,
me.
me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Sure.
Me too.
All right, I'll share that with Mr. Funk, and thank you for your Thank you for indulging me because we're working against my time objective, but I think we have a chance of making it
I
tonight.
think
So,
we do.
all right. So, anything else on the shared values of the Minnetonka City Council? I will give this to you, Mike, and you can see the item 13 how I modified that and
Okay,
include
thank you.
that. Or I'll give it to Miranda. I'm sorry. Thank you, Miranda. Any other comments? Anyone?
The one thing-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Councilmember Remaley has her hand up, then
Excuse me. You're right behind Deb. I can't see you.
Sorry,
We
my
don't-
big head, I feel like
Well,
Julia
you're leaning forward and
Louis-Dreyfus and
I'm
that.
sorry, but Councilor Bailey, excuse me.
Minor point, we talked about this briefly,
Yep.
like, today, and just the number 6, the teamwork and effective communication, which, I heartily agree with, but it seems like a more of a staff item because we're not allowed to have effective communication in some ways, you know, because of open meeting law. So it's a small point, but just gonna comment there and don't know if, you know, just wanted to know what that really means, so.
Well, it means we want that within the constraints of the open meeting law.
Yeah.
But the other thing that Mike raised that you were going to comment, you know, I wondered if, okay, what does, to your point, what does open lines of communication mean? And I think it speaks to transparency, and maybe you know, having the word transparent in there might. I don't know if that's an improvement or not. I don't know how people feel.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Miranda.
I do
Miranda's
have
got some
alternate
suggested language.
Yeah, so Mike gave me a heads up on this. I did write, Mayor, to your point. We work collaboratively and prioritize transparent and straightforward communication.
Is that good? People like that?
I like that.
Sure.
Sure.
All right, we're good. We're making progress. Miranda, thank you very much. All right, would somebody pass this to Miranda? And just focus on 13. I made a couple other notes on there that you can ignore.
And then, if I could,
Yep.
Brad, I don't want to hold this up.
Yep.
I really applaud you for these shared values, and I'd say that not just to butter your bread, but
Oh, yeah, we've heard that before.
It's okay to have your bread buttered once
Yeah.
in a while. I say that because I serve on the Minnesota City Manager Association Board, so MCMA board. We have monthly meetings, and I hear from colleagues of mine from across the state, the board does, hears from city councils that are, you know, really challenging, some really challenging dynamics, and probably some level of dysfunction. And it's not naive to think that it's, you know, there's good and bad councils out there. But I think what this does for you, because I hear those stories and you hear how some councils don't work well together, you do. And I really say that in sincerity, that I think this for you is a legacy for you, for this council, or you're signaling to constituents, to your residents, how you operate as a council. What are the values important to you? Not all cities can say this, and I think it is important, and I think our intent is to put this on the website. It's reflective of who you are as a council. And fast forward a couple of years from now, you might, councils turn over. You're gonna be gone at some point. You're gonna have new council members, and leaving a legacy of how we function as a city is important. I think it's important. I think you do too as well. That's what Minnetonka is known for: is solid governance, good management, good fiscal management, good councils, good strong leadership. This embellishes or symbolizes all of that. So it is important. I think it's truly important, and applaud your efforts for putting something on record, because it's something that years from now you have a thumb. Your thumbs will be all over making sure this legacy of the city continues.
And Mike, you know, I appreciate you saying that. And I want to say to this council that, one, I really appreciate all of you, and it's a privilege to work with you. I can tell you that the nature of councils and the gender of councils, the council members has changed dramatically in my time on the council, but I think we have a collaborative and respectful working relationship. And I want you to feel that you can say anything to me, and I trust you all. I think we've got a great working relationship, and I'm proud of what, I really agree with what Mike said, and I really appreciate how we work together and how we work through our differences. So I think that speaks to the character of the people that hold the roles, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. All right. City manager compensation. So as you recall, we did not get through that part of Mike's review before we ran into the midnight deadline. And so essentially the council delegated to 3 council members, to Councilmember Wilburn, to Councilmember Calvert, and me, the responsibility of handling Mike's compensation. And so we met and did that. So before I say anything further, either Kimberly or Deb, do you have any comments that you'd like to make about our meetings, and anything that you want to say?
The only thing I would say is that I think we were thinking about this very similarly. I think our concerns were really similar, and it was pretty easy to come to consensus. And I think we did our own calculations slightly differently, but sort of came at to the same conclusion. And one of the things that I just wanted to mention is, in my role, in my job at work, I do a lot of, I have to deal with compensation and salary compression a lot. And so I looked at the numbers a little bit from that perspective to see if what we were considering was going to relieve the salary compression for some of our directors and the people below them enough to really make us competitive for hiring, say, for Corinne's job since she's leaving, or say Chief Borboom and jobs like that, and sort of what it would do for the people below. So that's sort of like the calculations that I did. The mayor did a very kind of complete table, and Kimberly also made sort of a complete table, and I just sort of did my own calculations because it was very much in line with other people were coming up with. So we met twice.
Right. Kimberly, anything to add?
Nope.
All right. So I'll tell you where we netted out, because clearly, the process that will take place, and I met with Mike and informed him of what we as a subgroup decided, but it's not official until we act on that. So although you did delegate that responsibility to us, we all have to agree to it. And the things that we looked at were what our peer cities were doing, the fact that the salary cap ended, so we felt that the compensation would be probably higher than just a market rate, but we also felt that we didn't need to make up for all the limitations of the past in 1 year, that it probably happens over a number of years. So where we netted out was, and we also felt that an important ceiling for us was the levy increase. For us to, if we were to give the city manager an increase greater than levy increase, we're essentially being inflationary beyond our levy. So those are the things that weighed on us. We all looked at it a little bit differently, about the same. But so where we netted out was total compensation. That Mike had, there were two pieces of Mike's compensation. That was his salary, and then it was an accrual, a vacation accrual of 80 hours a year. So, and we just treated that all the same and said, let's add it together and apply, pick a number, look at the percentage, how's that compare with the levy increase? So we took Mike's total compensation to $245,000 per year, which is a 7.25% increase, which is very similar to our, I think it's 200th greater than our levy increase. And we went with a round number. My fellow committee members said we don't have to have a round number, but it was so convenient to do that at 7.25. So it's $245,000 per year. The other thing that, in talking with Mike, he said, that vacation accrual existed because of the salary cap and for a variety of reasons. He said, it would probably just be simpler and, in fact, a little cheaper for the city if we didn't do the vacation accrual and just turned it into a total cash compensation. So that's what we're doing, is taking a total cash compensation. The reason it would be slightly cheaper is those hours accrue and they're paid out at the end of Mike's career when he is being paying a higher rate. So we actually saved a little tiny bit. We didn't calculate how much, but it's a 7.25% increase that takes him to $245,000 straight cash, end of story. So that's where we netted out. We're hoping that you all agree, and then the process will be that will be a consent agenda item at the next city council meeting, and then it will become official. Any questions? All right.
Appreciate your putting the extra time in.
Well,
It sounds like it was very thoughtful.
Well, it was thoughtful, and Kimberly and Deb were great to work with, and we, it wasn't like one had to battle the, we really came to a consensus. I think, and we felt good that we did the right thing. So with that, Mike, we are semi-official now, and thank you for all your good efforts. And there's an agreement that we're thankful that you're our city manager, and we want to hang on to you.
Well, thank you, Brad. Thank you to the two committee members as well, Deb and Kimberly. I know you put extra effort into it. Thank you, entire council. It's always a pleasure. It is a pleasure. Always is a pleasure working with you. This city, we have a fantastic city. Love this city. You know that. So I appreciate your efforts on the compensation. It was really easy when I met with them. They put thought into it, and when I went into it, wasn't sure how the conversation was going to go, but they clearly put thought into it and used data too, and that was where I was going to be. My position was using the data, and that's my blue energy, is using the data. And we quickly, it's like when they mentioned what the offer looked like, I was like, yep, that's exactly where I was hoping we would land. And as they would say, both sides are happy.
There you go.
I think we're good, and if we end now, we'll be 20 minutes ahead of the target time. So that maybe this is a good trend.
With a pretty light agenda.
Thank you all.
I just have one quick question
Yes.
about the applications for the purgatory or the dog leash park areas that.
Work group.
Yep.
Wednesday by noon.
Mhm.
There's 30 of them. I haven't looked at them yet, but we had 5 days to go over 11.
They're pretty brief.
Are
The
they?
comments
Okay.
are pretty
Yeah.
brief. Yeah, I glanced
I haven't
over
looked at
them.
them
I
either.
haven't looked at them either,
But we really want to get this going.
Yeah, I think it's
It is.
important.
You're right. It's a very quick turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very quick turnaround on it. And the reason is because we want to get these to you next Monday. And for us to get these to you next Monday, the packet goes out Thursday.
Yeah.
So we just with
Yep.
Were we going to get
timing-wise.
staff recommendations for the zoning team?
Typically, yeah, with the process, so council,
So
you're
we're just-
submitting your rankings. Sarissa will compile
that's
those.
due
Those will be
tomorrow.
anonymous and be submitted to Brad.
Okay.
So Brad will look at the rankings anonymously. Staff will provide Brad with similar rankings. And then the mayor can look at council rankings, look at staff's suggested rankings, and we'll bring forward a recommendation on Monday
Okay.
of the whole package.
Right. And then it needs to be affirmed by the council. So if you think I'm,
And then,
never mind.
so I'm clear, like, when is the whole package, does that include recommendations for council members and like the other non-community members, or is it just gonna be community members decided?
It's the applicants.
Before
The whole
applicants?
group, right?
I'm sorry, can you
Are
restate
they
that?
gonna tell us the whole, who they're recommending for the whole seating of the whole thing? Or is it just gonna be for the community members?
Community applicants.
So what will come forward is, so you're ranking the community members.
Right.
With the, so for example, a planning commission representative or a EDAC representative, staff has talked to those boards and will provide a recommendation to the mayor for those folks. Because the liaisons my understanding is the liaisons have talked to those boards and solicited who's interested from those boards, and will provide that to
And
Brad.
what about council?
Oh, you get to decide that next Monday.
Oh,
In
so-
terms of because there's a council representative.
Right.
Right.
So it's
So next
anticipated.
Monday we get.
You can
okay.
thumb wrestle or arm wrestle, rock, paper, scissors.
1, 2, 3, 4. I have short thumbs. I don't.
I have little tiny
So
short.
yes, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Okay,
for
yes.
the
That's what I
council
wanted to know,
appointed,
like how,
It's hard.
like
staff
how much of it
anticipates.
is-
yeah.
But
I'd really strong hand.
to that point, I
Fire
think
them.
there's a couple things. I mean, what is the anticipated meeting schedule? And are there any council members who are particularly interested, or any council members who would want to opt out and say, I don't have time to do that, I don't want to be considered? That probably would be valuable. I don't want to stick somebody on it, or I don't want to recommend somebody on it who, is just, that's not they don't want to get into that
That would be
dogfights.
me. I probably don't have time.
Okay, yeah. So let's, if you could indicate that to Mike, we'll just, then,
Okay.
Yeah, just
then
let me
we'll make
know.
sure that somebody who does not want to be on it does not get selected.
Okay.
And can, or maybe they've already said, but can we know by Monday what the proposed meeting schedule will be?
Yeah, we'll outline that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think that would be helpful. Then we can all make.
And then it says not to rank the FOMP members. Do we know who they are? Like, I haven't, like.
So is
you know what I
FOMP
mean?
making a recommendation too?
For the-
So they get a
But
seat?
there's gonna be
Yeah.
2 FOMP members or on the
It's like
working
two or
group?
three, yeah, 2 or 3. So Matt Kumpka is leading, has led this
Yeah,
project.
I haven't studied either.
And so Matt Kumpka has communications with both the FOMP and with, is it Paws for Parks is the other group.
Yeah.
And so Matt has asked both groups for 2 or 3 names. And
Okay.
so
So it said we don't have to bother ranking those.
the FOMP or the Paws for Parks
Right,
folks.
I just wanna know, do we know?
I'm assuming it's
It'll
indicated
just
in
say-
there somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the packet.
Me neither.
If it's not,
but- Okay,
None
not
of us have
alone.
looked yet.
it's on the bottom.
So we know what we're gonna do.
But we haven't done it.
Okay.
All right.
is it,
Yeah.
did I answer, is it clear? Do you have other, these are
Sure.
good questions. I'm
Well,
sure you're
it's
clear.
clear that it's not totally clear, but it will be clear when we need it to be clear.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks, everybody.
Before you leave, I need the physical copies of your ranking sheets. Sarissa just sent me a note.
What?
You need 'em right now?
Yes,
For
I
the
have to
planning commission.
correct, the
Oh.
planning from tonight, the planning
Oh,
commission.
do I have a ranking?
I haven't done,
I don't have
I will
one.
promise
You
them
should
to
do it
you,
online.
I will promise them to you in the morning, but I'm not,
Okay.
I will
Yep.
not have them
Okay,
tonight.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
will, you'll,
I mean, I
I was
can,
gonna
I
take
can
it
send it
Send
later.
us a spreadsheet.
Oh, here it is.
I was gonna put
Yes.
it in the spreadsheet.
It
Oh,
looks
I
like-
see, I
It looks
see.
like this.
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Too.
If you do have this, let me know. I'll take that. Thank you.
Okay, well, maybe I can do it pretty
Otherwise,
quickly.
I don't,
Okay,
I
this
didn't
one.
do it.
I'll do it before I leave, okay.
Thank you. I'll hang on to it.
Okay, here you go. Do you need my name on it?
No. Did you adjourn, Mayor?
Yes, we are adjourned.
Yep.